Can you please, Julia, start the recording? Okay, good. Fine. Okay, we are ready now.
Okay.
So, welcome, Gerardo. Welcome for this Civis Gender Studies Network. This is the seminar by Universidad Autónoma de Madrid. The next one will be by the University of Glasgow and will be the end of the seminar for this year. The floor is yours, Gerardo. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you, and I am very sorry with these problems. It is the first time it happens to me, and I am really afraid for the future, but because in a few days I have another meeting, and I don't know if it's a specific problem of this session, or it is a broader problem. I will see. I will check it tomorrow. But anyway, again, sorry very much for the inconvenience. Well, I want to say first a little few words about myself and the topic. I am a sociologist at the Universidad Autónoma de Madrid since a lot of years. And, well, in the last 10, 15 years, my main topic of research is about leaf use and its effects on, particularly on family dynamics, because I am interested mainly in family dynamics from different point of views. I belong to an international network which deals with leave provisions, leave policy mainly. It is called International Leave Network. So if people are interested in the topic in this network, they will find very interesting material for analyzing parental leave all over a lot of countries in the world. Well, the topic in this session will be devoted to the impact of paternity leave on family dynamics, and in particularly on gender inequality in the distribution of childcare and home. So if you could advance the page. Parental leave is used as a generic name for different kind of leaves. Initially, the first leave that was introduced in labor legislation was by the end of the 19th century. It was maternity leave, and it was orientated mostly to protect the health of the mother and of the baby from those mothers who were working as salaried person. This was first introduced in the German area, in Germany and in Austria, but by the beginning of the 20th century, and thanks to the International Labour Organization Convention number 3, it was extended to most developed countries, with the exception of the United States, for example. During many decades, this was the only leave policy, and the objective was always to guarantee health and health of the mother and of the baby, But in the 70s, with the deep changes that took place, particularly during the 60s, a new objective to this leave policy, to maternity leave policy at the time, was shifted towards balancing family and working life, and that meant that beyond maternity leave, a parental leave was introduced, in principle gender neutral, that is as a family right, in the sense that it was an additional time to maternity leave to care for the children. The first countries that introduced this kind of leave were the Scandinavian countries, and they quickly permitted to use the leave for both parents. That means mothers and fathers, but in fact only mothers used leave, so that the idea of introducing parental leave as a gender equality instrument developed during the 80s, and in the 90s, in these countries, beginning with Norway and with Sweden, they introduced a so-called father's quota within the parental leave that was based on the principle take it or you lose it. That meant that they introduced 2 weeks till 3 weeks exclusively for the father, and if he didn't use it, it was reduced from the total amount of leave length, and it couldn't be used by the mother. This was intended as a means to force fathers to use a period of leave, and the objective was to reduce discrimination of mothers within the labor market as a first and main objective. But it was also argued that it was an important instrument for fostering involvement in family dynamics, and in this sense, reducing inequality within the family. This model of the father's quota was introduced beginning the 20th century in many countries, not as a father's quota as in the Scandinavian countries, but as a similar way as the maternity leave with the name of paternity leave. The logic was the same as for maternity leave, but length was much shorter, and the payment was also in some cases different. In other cases, it was just as with maternity leave, only for a shorter period of time. Meanwhile, in 2022, 70% of the countries with a high income over the world have some kind of paternity leave, and it has been also quite common in countries with middle or low income, as you can see in the slide. So all over the world, paternity leave has become a quite normal leave policy instrument. Though, as was mentioned before, the length of the leave and the level of payment varies hugely from one country to the other. We have Iceland with 6 months of the equivalent to the paternity leave, and other countries which just recognize only 2 days just after birth of the child. Could you move the slide, please? So, with the development of paternity leave, socioeconomic analysis began to be made and published, and their focus was mainly to analyze the impact of the leave policy in its different manifestations. That means maternity leave, parental leave, and also to a lesser extent paternity leave. What an impact it had on the economic outcomes for women. That means mostly on the level of employment, in what if it translated into a lesser exit from the labor market, or if it's translated into part-time work instead of full-time work, or what was the effects on the level of the salary of mothers and other aspects of work life of women, and also considered from the point of view of the partnership. When the focus was put on paternity leave, the interest was mainly what were the barriers for using paternity leave or for sharing parental leave in those countries who had a parental leave system based not on an individual right, but on a family right. That meant that fathers have to negotiate and share between them the leave rights. With the time, it extended also to analyze the impact of paternity leave on family dynamics. Using different measures of the degree of involvement of both parents in childcare and in housework, this literature, from which you have on the screen some references, it can be seen that there is a clear and consistent impact all over the studies of the use of parental leave on the involvement in childcare of the father. That means that the longer the leave, the parental leave fathers use, the higher is the impact on a greater involvement, mostly in time, but also in the variety of activities that fathers are involved in the area of childcare. We could, the team I coordinate here at the Universidad Autónoma, could also show that comparatively to the cases where the father is unemployed when they enter parenthood, the impact of using paternity leave was stronger than the time ability that was possible through unemployment. Not so much during the period that they were unemployed, but mostly about the involvement in childcare when they return back to work. What we have seen is that unemployed fathers use childcare as a functional equivalent for work, in the sense that caring for the children gives them status in a context where fathers caring of children is seen as a value, as something positive. And as soon as they get back to employment, they reduce substantially the involvement in childcare, What is not so much the case when they take parental leave, because parental leave is associated with an idea that the father is obliged or should be actively involved in childcare, and that is not something which is a consequence of a stigma, which is to be unemployed, but the consequence of following a policy which supports the involvement of fathers in childcare. So the institutional dimension of leave, of paternity leave design is an important trigger of a greater involvement in childcare. Could you move to the next slide, please? The impact on the involvement in a household task, on the contrary, is less well documented or less consistent, because there are quite a number of studies which show that there is no impact at all on a greater involvement in housework, while there are others which show that there is also an impact in this domain. And with the data I will present, you will see that this is the case in Spain, at least with the data I will present. In a study in different qualitative studies using interviews in Dept, it has been shown that it is not only important the length of the leave, but also how the leave is used, and in particular, it is very important if the father uses the leave to care for the baby after the mother has returned to her workplace, so that he cares for the child, for the baby, in, I don't know how it is said, that he cares alone the child during a long or a relative long period of time. If he uses the leave, the paternity leave, to care for the baby alone, the impact is deeper in the sense that the attachment which develops during the caring process is stronger. It lasts over the period he's caring when he goes back to work. The caring skills are more developed, so he is then more involved in all type of activities, caring activities, and the involvement in the household task is also more intense because it is closely related with caring the child. So the experience of caring for the child alone for a period has a strong impact on both dimensions, childcare and housework. That fathers increase their child their time involvement in childcare and in household work. It doesn't mean that gender inequality is lower, because it depends also how is the behavior of the mother in this dimension related to having to becoming mother or having another child. So the focus of the analysis I will present will be to analyze how the difference between the time devoted to childcare and housework by both parents as an indicator of gender inequality in family life it's affected by the use of paternity leave in both dimensions. On one side, on the length of the leave, and on the other side, how it is used, if it is used for caring the child at least 4 weeks, that means a month alone, or it is done at the same time as the mother is caring the newborn baby during her maternity leave. And so the role of the father is mainly as supporter, as helper, not as the principal responsible of the caring of the child and the dynamic of the household. And I will do it controlling the impact of these those aspects of leaf use by other relevant variables that has been identified by the literature. On the one side, time availability measured by the work status of both parents, the workload measured by the age of the youngest child and the number of children, and the power resources of both parents measured by the difference in their incomes, in particularly if the father earns more money than the mother, and the educational level of both parents. And I will do it focused in the Spanish case. And the Spanish case is relevant for this topic because Spain introduced paternity leave in 2007. It was 2 weeks fully paid during these 2 weeks. That meant that father has a substitution salary of 100% of their earnings. That was a strong incentive for using the leave, and over the time, the number of weeks have been increased, particularly after the reform of 2019, where under the heading of equal leave for both parents and non-transferable between them, and that was a very feminist and pro-egalitarian idea and an objective. Paternity leave was extended from, at the time, 5 weeks till 16 weeks, so that actually Spanish fathers have a right to 16 paid, fully paid weeks birth leave, as it is called after the reform. And the 6 of these 16 weeks are compulsory just after the birth of the child or adoption, and the 10 others are optional and can be used during the first year of life of the baby. So that implies that Spanish paternity leave policy is among the most generous all over the world, just behind Iceland, which has, as mentioned before, 6 months. In the Spanish case, it's nearly 4 months to which they have right. And the analysis I will do is OLS linear regression between the dependent variable, which is the gender inequality index I mentioned before, conditioned by the independent variables I mentioned also before. Could you change? Okay, thank you. The data on which I will rely First, I will show some statistical data from the Spanish Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and the analysis will be performed according to a survey, the Quidan survey, which is an online survey the team I coordinate designed in 2020, and which was applied in mid-2021 by a research institute to a representative sample of 2,100 parents with at least one child age 6 years or less, residing in Spain, irrespective of nationality, but speaking Spanish because the questionnaire was only provided in Spanish. For the analysis, I will use only the subsample of fathers, and this reduces the sample to the half, and so there are some fathers who didn't answer. The final size of the sample is nearly 1,300 fathers. In this survey, we ask parents, among other things, to estimate how much time a week they devote themselves to childcare and to housework, and we ask them also to estimate the same variables for the couple. So we can build up an index making the difference between the estimate for the father and for the mother. So we have then the point of view of the father. We have the problem always when we use this kind of measure that there is a bias in terms of that the interview, the father of the mother or the mother, always tend to overestimate the time they devote to this task, and by the way, also to other activities. This is neutralized by the fact that we look only to the most beneficial measuring of the differences, which is the point of view of the father. And on the other side, that we will focus attention not so much in the amount, the degree of inequality, but rather the impact of using leave, paternity leave on this index controlled by the variables I mentioned before. So the next slide, please. So as a first approach, you have here a measure of the percentage of fathers in blue and mothers in red who have used maternity leave in red and paternity leave in blue as a percentage of total births. In principle, in an universalistic protection system where all fathers have right to live, it should be 100%. But this is not the case in most of the countries which have a statutory leave system. That means that the right to leave payment, a period of not working, is acknowledged only to those persons, in this case fathers, who has paid social security fees. That translates automatically in that those parents who haven't paid fees to the social security because they are working in the black market, they have no right to any leave, irrespective of the type of leave and the sex. And if they don't have paid for enough time, they don't have neither a right to leave. The solution some countries, and among them Spain, has made is to lower the requisites and the or conditions of payment to get right of the leave. And in Spain, they are quite generous because you have to be paying fees 2 months before birth, and to have paid 100 days over the 7 last years. So you can, if you have worked more or less half a year, and you have worked two months before birth, you are entitled to a paternity leave who pays you 100% of what you are earning. So if we consider how much fathers take the leave in relation to those who are eligible, we have a 93% of fathers who make use of paternity leave. If you measure it in relation to the total amount of children born in a specific year, you can see that when it was introduced, it was 50%, around 50%, and meanwhile it is 76%. So the introduction of the paternity leave was quite successful in Spain, particularly if we compare it with how it is used in Korea or Japan, where they have introduced it also with a very long period to be able to take the leave, and only a very small proportion of parents use it. So we have, due to this history of the Spanish leave policy, the experience of very different fathers who have made use either of 2 weeks, either of 4 weeks, either of 5 weeks, either of 9 weeks, either of 12 weeks or 16 weeks of leave, and in addition to those who don't have used leave. I mean, we have quite a lot of different situations of and experiences of using the leave. The results of the regression model, and perhaps I don't know if everybody is familiar with data presented in this way. If you go to the next slide, I have written it down in words, and perhaps it is easier to understand it this way. So as a reference, fathers estimate that they devote 14 hours less than the mother a week to childcare. But if they have used paternity leave, for each week of paternity leave they used, this difference is reduced into 0.2 hours a week. That means that if the father has taken 4 weeks, it reduces nearly 1 hour. If it has taken 10 weeks, it reduces 2 hours. And if he has taken 16 weeks, it reduces 2.3 hours. This result is statistically robust, and it is coherent with many other studies. In Spain, we ourselves have done, and also other colleagues have done, that shows that using paternity leave has a positive impact on fathers' childcare involvement, and it translates into a gender inequality, as can be seen here. If this paternity leave is used to care alone at least for 4 weeks, we can see that there is an additional reduction of inequality of 3.7 hours a week. So if the father has taken 16 weeks and some of them, more than 4, are taken to care alone, there is a reduction in gender inequality in childcare of 7 hours, which is 50% of the reference. The impact in housework is also statistically significant, unlike what we found in 2012, that means 10 years before. And the impact is a little bit less, but nearly equal to 0.2 hours a week for 0.2 hours if he uses a week, and if he uses 16 weeks, 3 hours, because it's a little bit less than 0.2. And it is, if it's used to care alone, it is 2.4 hours. As a conclusion, and you can go further, we can see that leave policy extended to grandfathers a paternity leave, it has a clearly positive impact on gender inequality within the family. The potential is a little bit greater in childcare than in housework, but our results show that it is in both dimensions, and this impact is greater if fathers are pushed, not only facilitated, but if there is a policy which tries to foster that fathers use it to carry it alone. Because with data that I don't show, one of the problems in the case of Spain is that although fathers can use it this way to care alone, it is only a minority election of the fathers. Most of them use it at the same time as the mothers, following a quite traditional understanding of leave policy. So that would be what I wanted to.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't know whether I should say Gerardo or Gerard. How do you pronounce your name?
Well, the families and friends call me Gerard because my mother was German. Sorry, my mother was French.
I see. That's right. So I was right. I was right in calling you Gerard since the beginning. But then I realized that we were in Spain, and probably I was wrong. So okay, thank you so much. Really, it was extremely interesting. And even if we started late, we still have some time for question and answers. So please write down in the chat if you have any question. In the meantime, I will stop sharing, so at least I can also see the chat more easily. So don't be shy. I say this also to the students. This is something that apply to everyday life of our households. So is there any question for Gerard? Yes, Julia Zakia, please.
Yes, Gerard. So if I'm right in pronouncing your name, thank you so much. It was really interesting, and I really think that, I mean, it's something that we have to embrace also in Italy, that we will need, I mean, this kind of activities, this kind of measures about paternity leaves that we don't have. Just say, I mean, a matter of curiosity, because I saw in one graph that you have the trend in the differences of mothers and fathers that took that leaves. And you have, I mean, so interesting data also until 2022. So you have also the COVID-19 pandemic. And if I'm not wrong, I saw that from 2020, both for men and for women, we have an increase in how many women and men took these leaves. So I was wondering, I mean, if you have any kind of idea of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic in these maternity paternity leaves, and if you think that, I mean, COVID and all the fact that we had to, I mean, be at home compulsory, increase also, let's say, a more active role of parents in taking care of their children. And so, let's say, a quite imbalance of the time of unpaid care work put in the households.
Yes, Gerardo. I just add one thing concerning this point, because something that we have seen in Italy during the pandemic is a greater involvement of fathers in housework, but at the same time we also observe specific involvements, like for example going out to buy food, for example, or to take the dog in the street and things like that. I mean, things that somehow allow also to escape from the lockdown and so on. So I wonder whether you have some evidence about this also in Spain. The similarities between our countries, of course.
Yes, well, I think there is two questions, one related with leave use and another one related with sharing family work. Regarding to the use of leaves, what we see for mothers, for mothers and for fathers, is that there is a close relationship between the economic conjuncture and leave use, because as it is related with being employed, if there is a period of crisis, as it was in the case of Spain between 2008 and 2015, what we can see is that there is a slight decrease in leaf use. It is only a slight decrease because unemployed parents, when they are receiving unemployment benefits, they have right also to maternity and paternity leave. And that means that the period they get unemployment benefits is extended with these leave periods. So this is, but in any case, for those with have more than 2 years and a half unemployment, they would have afterwards no right to any leave period. So there is a relationship with unemployment, but it is not so strong. What we see is that after the reform where the length of the leave begins to increase, where it was introduced that using paternity leave was compulsory, but was not the case before 2019, the use of leave increased, but it increased in a period where employment was increasing also. So there is no clear impact of making compulsory leave use. In any case, it followed the tendency of the relationship between leave use and conjuncture and degree of unemployment. There is only a statistical effect of change in the case of fathers, because when they introduced the reform, I don't know how they made the counting, and suddenly it grew a lot and then it decreased. But if one looks at the tendency, it is clearly an outlier, and the tendency is of slowly increase. So what we can see related with COVID is that there is no impact in leave because unemployment derived from COVID was covered by unemployment benefits, and by unemployment benefits or by another scheme of income maintenance that was introduced during this period, so that it isn't affected substantially patterns of leave use. Regarding involvement of both parents in family work, what we have seen is also an increase in involvement, father's involvement in childcare, mainly, particularly because they were at home teleworking, and on the other side, they didn't could count with grandparents for caring the children, as it is quite extended model, as you know, but particularly as an emergency resource for caring the children. So fathers were much more involved, but the pattern that can be observed and the results come from 2021 June, when the pandemic was nearly to an end, is that it happens in the same way as with the experience of unemployment and what I argued before. COVID was a circumstance that was not wanted, it was imposed. Caring for the children was imposed by the circumstances, so then there was another adaptive behavior to this circumstance. Once things come to normal, they follow the general trend of changing. It is true that the involvement of fathers is greater now than it was years before, but it is the tendency to increase involvement of both parents because of the general social change in this direction. This greater involvement is not the result of a policy and that supports and gives a positive image of the father which is involved, but it is just an adaptive response to circumstances.
Marcella, we cannot hear you. You are muted.
Thank you. Sorry about that. There is a question in the chat, Gerard, by Antonio Tano, that is particularly interested in analyzing any difference between heterosexual couples and other type of families. So I suppose he wonders whether you have any evidence. You stress very clearly in your slide that your results were referring to heterosexual couples, but do you have any evidence concerning homosexual couples with children?
No. Well, I have data. Well, I have not, but I could look at the official statistics of leave use, and well, regulations allow same-sex couples to use both leaves. Both parents are entitled to take a leave. In fact, legislation doesn't speak of fathers and mothers. Legislation, since the reform, speaks of first progenitor, first parent and second parent, and not father and mother. And if they and they don't need to be married and nothing related to it. So same-sex couples, if they become parents, they are entitled as heterosexual. In the survey, we have only heterosexual because, in a survey with 3,000 units, you don't capture any significant amount to do any kind of analysis. Looking data on, macro surveys from the Spanish Statistical Institute about the composition of the household. 2 years ago, when I wrote a chapter on family diversity in Spain, we could identify that gay couples, that means both men with children, is a minority, a very small minority. I don't remember exactly how much, but it is about 10% at the maximum of same-sex couples. So couples of two men don't tend to have children. Another question is two women. For two women, it was much more frequent because I remember it was near to 1 in 4 of these couples having a child. But as mentioned, we have no data to analyze. You need a huge sample or a focus sample to have information on this, and we don't have it, and I don't know of anybody who has this kind of samples.
Okay, thanks a lot.
We cannot hear you.
Okay,
Thank you
thanks
so
a lot.
much. Thank you, Antonio. I mean, probably the last question, because time is almost over. You mentioned the source of data now, the fact that, of course, we will need detailed data in order to answer to this type of questions. But I mean, what about the time use surveys in Spain? I mean, when was the last one? Do you plan also for your research to use the time use survey just to make some analysis together with the administrative data coming from the Social Security Institute, things like that? I mean, what are your plans for future research?
Well, regarding the time use survey, the last one is from 2011. So 10 years ago, in the statistical plan of the Statistical Institute, it was mentioned that it would be done 4 or 5 years ago. They didn't did it. After I read it was announced for some 2 years ago during the COVID. They didn't did it again. Now I don't know exactly if they will do it or not. I suppose it will be made within the general rules of Eurostat. I am not informed about this, but I think they are not very effective because, well, they don't produce it until, well,
Well, Gerardo, actually, sorry if I stop you. There are 2 questions in the chat, one by Francesca Leopardi and one by Silvia De Usanio. If you want to read them, and then we close with your answers to these 2 questions. Can you read them?
Just a moment.
Otherwise, I read that for you, eh?
Francesca, do you think that paying an external person to take care of a children could somehow foster gender equality by freeing women from their role of just mothers and letting them come back to work? Well, I haven't introduced this variable that we have in the analysis. Well, to not introduce so many variables, but I remember this variable wasn't significant. So with analysis we have performing with different surveys we have used, these variables appears sometimes having a positive effect on gender equality within the couple, but not always. And in the case I was introducing, it was not the case. And the other question. Well, the results contribute to something we tried to bring to the policymakers. That is that they foster leave use on a solo basis. That means that they should in some way support through a bonus of some kind that fathers use part of the optional leave to take care for the child when the mother returns to work, because this has a much more transformative potential than using it at the same time. We were speaking with the representative of the ruling party early this summer, just a few weeks before they did a reform, showing them the data I presented, and how effective and how important it was. But they made an amendment of the leave policy legislation by the end of June, and they didn't introduce any measure in this sense. So our results do not translate into changing legislation, only in showing that the experience of caring alone is a very important asset that leave policy can use to foster gender equality.
Well, unfortunately, the time is over now. I just wanted to show it doesn't work, doesn't matter. So thank you so much, Gerard. Thank you for being with us.
A pleasure.
And for an excellent presentation. I tell the students, if they are interested in the slide, that of course they can write to me and I can send them the slides. Since Gerard was so kind to send them to us in advance. And I just remind to all of you what I said at the beginning, that this is almost the last seminar of the Civis Gender Studies Network. I said almost the last because we still have one in December by the University of Glasgow. So join us also for the next one. And thank you again and have a nice evening. Thank you.
Same to you, and thank you, and sorry for the delay.
No, don't worry, it happens sometimes. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.